What was the question you brought up before? Like right before we hit record?
Oh, how can you tell when somebody's unhappy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a Ask Reddit, and it was, what are some signs that someone is secretly unhappy? And so there were a lot of good answers.
I mean, that's a question that kind of plays off of our last episode talking about meditation.
That's why I'm thinking maybe we should go with it.
Yeah, we can run with that.
Because my ideas about that have also changed recently too. Because I was an unhappy person for a really long time. And so I do have some bearing or indication on at least people who were like me of being able to tell when they're unhappy.
I don't know if I have the skill to tell if a stranger is always unhappy. But, you know, certainly when you know someone, you can pick up on differences in social cues, behavior.
Yeah.
Just little tics that a person might have that you're close to. I mean, you can kind of tell that they might be off their game a little bit.
Yeah, that's what a lot of posts were saying. A lot of posts were saying that, like, you can tell by a change in behavior. So, like, a change in mood, if there's social withdrawal. Like, so if they're withdrawing socially, whereas before they were very socially active, right? So those are going to be some obvious signs. But there were signs to me, and that's why it also interested me. There's signs that are less obvious and that I think are still signs of unhappiness, even though we don't tend to. Like, one of the things that I said was, like, if you're just always happy, you know what I mean? You're never content. You never go through any rough patches. It seems to me that at that point you're hiding something. Like, you're hiding something from yourself. If you're constantly chasing highs, if you're constantly trying to get into the next thing.
Like someone who's like cheery all the time.
Yes, someone who's cheery all the time, someone who's trying to get into the next thing they can get into to keep their minds busy, right?
Yeah.
There's probably an underlying tone of unhappiness that they're just not dealing with.
You sound like British right now. Like someone who's like, yeah, someone who's cheery. Like, I don't trust them. Like, there's something
off. Yeah. Are British people against cheeriness?
I think that they're more dry personalities. Not dry in like a bad way, but
I thought it would have been reverse.
You picture like British people like cheery?
I'm probably getting Canadians and British people confused. So, yeah, Canadians.
I don't know anything about
Canadians.
British
must
people.
be really depressed then at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that. So yeah, I mean, social isolation is going to be part of it. Sometimes you can tell by even the people that they're hanging around. You know, I think that. And I obviously, like, I guess right now we're speaking for other people, right? And that should be difficult to do. That's not something that you should do lightly. So ultimately we can't know and we can't get in their minds. I guess for me, I was just giving from my own perspective. And even though that description doesn't necessarily meet me, and then I see a lot of people who they are, when you're around them, they're very happy, but then they have these like moments when they think nobody's watching or nobody's around that you can tell like something really breaks in them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, they don't know how to, like, everything's good for them as long as their life is good. And that's not happiness to me. That's not what happiness is to me. That's not genuine happiness.
Their happiness is conditional.
Yes. Yeah. So everything's good as long as it's going good. But the second something doesn't go exactly right, they can't handle it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, okay, you might have moments of happiness, but you don't know how to keep yourself happy. And that to me is, or keep yourself content, you know? And so that to me is really what I look for when I'm talking about a person who is content and happy.
Well, everyone's got their breaking point.
Oh,
I mean,
for sure.
some people are more resilient than others.
Yeah.
So they're going to be able to be, I mean, I don't know if we're talking about content or happy now at this point, but
I'm talking about both.
Yeah, I mean, under different conditions, you know, one person could be, you know, someone that is grown up in a very adverse life and they've like overcome that. Mm-hmm. They can maintain a level of happiness that maybe someone who has led a very, you know, a life without any kind of conflict or adversity, they wouldn't be able to maintain happiness with just a slight reduction in their conditions.
Yeah,
because they're so used to things being good.
Yeah, and that's what I mean too. You're right. Everybody has different levels. as well. So, condition plays a part in it for sure. There's just no doubt about it. But I think that what I'm trying to get at here, what I'm talking about, is a lot of people that I see, especially in America, I guess is where I was even going. Because I see all these people. I see a lot of people who are quote unquote successful, who claim to be happy, but like their lives are everywhere, obviously, right? And I see them in a lot of moments and I'm just like, there's no way you are actually content and happy. Like you're getting into fights with your significant other all the time. Your kids don't like you, like that's not, you can't tell me that you're actually happy. Like you might say it, you might have a smile on your face, right? But all these other moments that are also, by the way, like you're doing too. That's the other thing that throws me off is you have these highly successful people and then they go and they like cheat on their wives or, and they're not doing it for really any other reason that they have power and that they can, and then they want it, right? And it's just like, that is a very fleeting happiness. So you are not a happy person. You're trying to use happiness to get you out of your unhappiness. And that's only going to last so long.
Which creates more.
Yes. Compounding effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people are like that. I think a lot of people in America are like that, and they have that mindset.
The only kind of happiness a lot of people know is the like happiness that results from impulse or what you want to feel in a moment, because that's the only length of peace that I think the ordinary. I mean, again, we're talking about Americans. Like, so in our culture, I think the idea of like a resting state of peace is elusive to most people.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't even know what that feels like to have any kind of extended resting peace feeling. And so, I mean, that's like we have we consume a lot of alcohol in the U.S. and part of that is because you don't worry about stuff when you're hammered out of your mind. You know what I mean? Like,
and lots of other substances.
Well, I mean, some people worry about everything when they're hammered out of their mind, but other people, like, they forget about all their problems for a little bit. And if that's the only kind of peace that they know, and that's the only route that they know how to get to that peace, well, then that's what they're going to do, because you want to feel that kind of peace, and so you're going to go that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's weird. I think we're coming upon some interesting things at this point then too, because what's interesting to me is that like Americans are not short of want for instant gratification.
Yeah.
We have some of the best of it in the world.
Yeah.
And we also have really high depression. We have a lot. So it seems very clear that we're distracting ourselves, and that was the connection for me between happiness and contentment. Contentment, to me, is the key to knowing whether or not you have somebody who can genuinely appreciate happiness and return back to contentment rather than oscillating between happiness and unhappiness, right? Which is not a stable happiness.
Yeah.
So it's not that they can't be happy, right? We all have moments of unhappiness. There's no way around that, right? But it's not a stable happiness. What you really want to look for is somebody who is just like, that dude's okay, or that lady is okay, or that person, like they can just sit there and be content. They don't need to be running around all the time.
I'd say it's actually hard for a lot of people to even differentiate between contentness and happiness, but then flip it around, contentness and unhappiness. That takes a kind of emotional intelligence that I don't know is necessarily intuitive. Particularly if you were talking about oscillating between different emotions. If that happens to someone a lot, in short spans of time where that oscillation is happening, it becomes a blur. Like the different emotions become a blur because you're like, am I happy right now?
Oh, wow.
Am I content or am I unhappy? Like I don't really know.
Yeah. There's like an emotional tornado in people.
Yeah, and then so I think probably the result of that is you start to chase something that will make you happy, at least for a little bit. And like you were saying, in the United States, instant gratification, you can get it any way that I mean, not only can you get instant gratification, but you can get it any way that you want it. You know,
Different
it
forms.
could be like something simple as like food. Like, you know, we've got how many restaurants around where we live? You know, what kind of food do you want right now?
Yep.
Go get it if that's gonna make you like feel better.
And then you go out some days and you're just like, man, there's nothing to eat.
Yeah. And then you're not, because
yeah. That's
and you expect that there should have been the thing that you wanted,
yeah.
and it's not.
But there's dozens of restaurants around you.
Yeah, if you're just willing to drive, 12 minutes, one way.
Yeah.
It could be alcohol, it could be drugs. But like I said, it doesn't have to be nefarious. The instant gratification doesn't have to be nefarious. It could be, access to like playing like computer games.
Entertainment.
YouTube.
We are not short of one.
Whatever.
Yeah, and everybody's
we
got
live in our little
too.
mansions,
Yeah, I know, right? Like we are the 1% in the world, right?
Yeah, which is funny because on other episodes we spend all our time talking about how like we don't have what we
well, maybe we
need.
should talk about that. I mean, that's something we should address in a future one too. Like, so if we are supposed to be paying attention to the 1%, right? And we are the 1%, then we need to think about ourselves more, which I've always thought, it's just like what that's why the idea of like wasting food disgusts me. When we just, there's, supermarkets just throwing away pounds and pounds of completely good food, and such concepts, and so just really thinking about like, well, I don't want to waste food then. And that's why I try to eat everything that I buy, I keep that in my mind. But in terms of like the content and the happiness thing, I think that was really interesting. And one thing that I found just yesterday was that I was content. So I got injured, right? And I was just like, well, so your back hurts. You can't move. Like I couldn't move. Like I was just in bed. I had Cassandra like getting me stuff or whatever. And then
nice.
Yeah. And then like,
I would milk that. Just stay hurt for a while.
Well, I don't want to become an episode of Parks and Recs. There's an episode where Andy Dwyer pretends to be hurt just so he can get them to keep doing, and then she gets pissed. Understandly.
Yeah.
But
but you're not there yet, so just
just
give it another day or two.
Well, I mean, and then the other thing too is that I should stay moving. So
right,
when you're like, it's not I don't think the muscle's torn or anything. I think I just sprained it. So, but the point is, like, it was difficult for me to move. If I moved a certain way, it was just really not good.
Yeah,
I could, I'm actually used to, and this is a bad habit that I need to fix, but sleeping on my stomach. Mm-hmm. So, and that's not supposed to be good for you. So I really had to sleep on my back or my sides last night.
I don't even think I'm capable of sleeping that way.
On your stomach?
Yeah, that terrifies me. I don't know why, but
I don't know, man. I don't know either. I think I get hot really quickly, so I just do somersaults in my bed to keep myself cool at night.
Yeah,
I just do a lot of flailing. So, at least from what
nothing like a midnight gymnastics session.
Yeah, gotta stay fit, adroit. But yeah,
what does adroit mean?
I think it's like a what do they call it? Like an acrobat. Like you're very limber and can move easily.
Cool.
Yeah, I think. So
someone will correct you.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, Mr. English person. Yeah, so I'm in bed last night and those things are going on, and it's just like, okay, well, how do you feel? Because this, and I know this 100% would have upset me 2 years ago. If I had been in this condition 2 years ago, I would have been defeated.
You're more resilient now than you used to be?
Yes. Yeah. So I would have been defeated. And it's just like, well, do you feel bad? And it's just like, nah, I feel great. Like I'm laying in bed and like, I'm just like, I'm content just being in this bed. And
is your primary, do you think the primary factor for that resiliency is your meditative practices, or is there like there's like a configuration of other factors?
Nope.
You think it's really
it's just that? Yep, and I'll give you another example here in a second. So that happened. I didn't actually start off by saying I was great. It started off with, well, how do you feel? And it's just like, well, I'm content. And that content almost immediately turned to happiness. It was like, wait, I'm content? I'm content and my back hurts and I can't move. And it's just like, that's happy. That immediately became happiness to me. It was just like, how...
Because you were like celebrating like the fact that you could be content
Yes.
with that problem, you're like, that's awesome.
Yeah, that
And
was
then
a joy. Yes.
That made you feel better.
Yes, it made me
That's
feel
cool.
great. Yeah, and then so the other thing was, I did get depressed the other night, and I used to have these long I had these long moments of it, hours. It used to keep me up at night, and I got depressed for like 5 to 10 minutes, and I just did what I've been telling you this whole time.
Well, let's run with that for a second, because what you're saying is interesting to me, because when we think about being Americans, we think about what we want instant gratification for, not just feelings, but for being healed or solutions to problems. Whereas, like, it sounds to me, your solution to becoming more resilient took a long road, and it was like incrementally. And it's hard. It is hard to do the right thing when the improvements are incremental over an extended period of time, because you don't feel the issue being fixed until just one day you finally get to the end of the road and you're like, I'm here. But it takes so long to get there that most people don't even bother, or they don't even view it as a solution to a problem, because it takes so long to get to it. And what do we have to do to reorient our minds to realize that a solution that takes a long time to get to is still okay, and it's still the right one.
Yeah, Jay, you were an excellent interviewer, man. You need to do this shit, man. I'm
just gonna drop out of school now and just.
My friend said I was a great interviewer.
It's funny that you brought. So I went to a meeting today. I had to conduct an interview.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not going to get into the details, but the reason I'm bringing it up is I was only supposed to meet with 2 people, right? So I was prepared to talk to those 2 people, and then just kind of by happenstance, as we were going to the meeting, there were other people outside, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're meeting with this guy for this thing. You guys want to be a part of it? You might be relevant." And so now I'm suddenly by myself with like 7 other people. And I don't know their names. I don't know who they are. And they're like, "Oh, well, what do you need from us?" And I was like, I don't know what I need from you, because I don't know who you are. Like, and so I found myself sitting there asking questions like, "What is it that I should be asking you?" It was like a real question that I asked.
Oh,
and
man.
like I got some information out of that, but it was not like the most effective
ideal
thing. Yeah, it was just,
that's hilarious.
But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to get you off your train of thought.
I think that there's some studies in here that could be helpful that actually have been discredited to some degree, thanks to Daniel Kahneman.
And who's that?
Daniel Kahneman he's an economist who won the Nobel Prize. I'm pretty sure he's like the first one ever. But he's done a lot of work in.
He's the first Nobel Prize.
He's the first person with an economics degree.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's the first person who's an expert in economics to win the Nobel Prize. I think that's off the top of my head.
Again, someone will.
Yeah, correct me. I'm sure. But he basically tried to retest a bunch of psychological studies, and they couldn't replicate them. And one of those was the marshmallow study. And you probably heard of that one, right? So
catch me up.
So they they have kids, and they give them a marshmallow, and they say, you can either have this marshmallow now, or you can wait, not eat this marshmallow, and we'll give you 2 later.
Okay.
So the idea was that they recorded which students ate the marshmallow immediately and which didn't. Then they followed them down, I don't know, a decade, and by the end of that, I don't really know, but by the end of that, whatever time span, they found that the students who waited were more successful, quote unquote, than the students who had to eat the marshmallow right then.
Just in general, they're making...
Yes.
They're more future-focused in their decision-making process.
Yes. Because you were just talking about now, right? Like, you don't get that immediate result.
Yeah.
Right? And there are things that they say to do to, like, get around that. One would be, like, for instance, if you want to work out and you want to get in shape, don't measure yourself every day. Measure yourself at the end of a week. Because you will, if you're consistent, you will see those results at the end of the week. So sometimes it just helps to I think the biggest piece of advice that I could give to anybody is that you have to learn to enjoy the journey. Like, it's the journey. It's not the destination. You have to get that out of your head, you know? So, like, I'm sitting in bed yesterday, and it's really, you asked all the perfect questions, because it was just like I was sitting in bed, and it wasn't like, man, I got to get healed now. I got to do this. I got to do that. It was just like, just move slow, you know? Like, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to heal, you know, most likely. Most likely, you didn't tear anything too bad. You're going to heal. Move slowly. Put some ice on it, get some warmth on it, you know, and just chill, just be here, right? And I already feel better, you know. I was in bed this morning and it was a little bit stiff, and it took me a second, but I noticed that, like, I hopped out of bed way easier than I did last night.
Now, something else you said too is me curious. I'm interested about how people respond to, like, trauma in their life or injuries, what physical or emotional, right? Mm-hmm. In relation to, like, isolated suffering. So when you go out and interact in the world with, you know, in your social circles, whether it's at work or like you're out, you know, hanging out with your buddies, you don't see what their problems are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we all go home at the end of the day and we deal with our problems there
individually.
And so, you know, I wonder, you know, say, you know, human beings back in the day, we lived in this little tiny village where everything's communal, we're interacting together on a daily basis. Now you're seeing other people with what they suffer with, right? So you know that, you know, your buddy that lives in you know, his tent, like, you know, 30 feet from yours, he's got this problem, and then somebody else has this problem, and it makes you, I wonder if that makes you more comfortable with the issues that, you know, the problems that you have, because you're like, I'm not the only one suffering. Yeah. Whereas, like, in our world, we think that everyone else is fine based on our interactions with them. Everyone else doesn't have any problems, but I got to go home and deal with X, Y, and Z. And so that isolation increases the emotional or physical trauma, that the perception of the trauma that you have.
100%. 100%, that's what it is. Yeah, because you can contrast, again, that back injury that I had.
Yeah.
Flashback to 3 years ago, I got a back injury on my shoulder, right? I was defeated. You know, I was boxing a lot. I was running a lot. I got in really great shape.
Yeah.
I got hurt once, and it was just like, I can't even do this, right? I can't even work out. I'm just trying to, you know, you go down, you immediately start going down that negative or whatever.
I get it.
I don't even have pain in my shoulder right now. Like, I'm fine, you know? Like, I'm completely 100% fine. They told me that it was chronic even. They had told me when I went to the doctor, they were like, it's going to be chronic. Your shoulder's
going to suck forever.
Yeah, they were like, it's probably going to suck for the rest of your life. Yeah. And it didn't. You know, it's just like, I just took care of it, you know? And that isn't, I'm not, by the way, saying that any problem can be fixed then, by the way. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, I do believe you go back 2 years, right? I think that the problem could have been fixed earlier if my mindset would have been different. What I'm saying is that this mindset helps you. It's not a cure-all, right? It just it's what Dan Harris. He has that app, 10% Happier.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with him.
So that's the idea, is that, like, it's not, now in my case, I would put that percentage higher, by the way. Like, but that's just me. I don't know what everybody else's percentage is, but he says that, you know, you can't, it's not going to completely transform your life. This isn't like a pyramid scheme or a self-help book, you know. It's just going to make you a little bit happier. It's going to take the edge off, essentially. Yeah. It did more than take the edge off for me, though. But
and that in a positive mindset or resilient mindset is regardless of the overall results you get from that, that's gonna be better for you to think that way.
Yes.
Both short term and long term. But I think a lot of people, and maybe you're like a psychologically revealing my own problems, but you know, sometimes you have, you know, at least for me, feel like I have a right to, like, be pissed off about whatever I'm mad about. And so, you know, maybe I want to live in that because, like, I should be mad about this problem.
Yeah.
But that doesn't do me or anybody else with that attitude any good.
Yeah. And you are right. In the moment, it's understandable.
Yeah.
The thing is like separating truth from what happens next, right? Because
Yep.
you made a true comment in your head. You were just like, I have a right to be upset, and you were right. You know, it's if somebody slaps you in the face, it's a completely normal response to get angry. Okay. Now, what you do next is completely different from that, though. That's the thing you have to realize, right? It's not going to be helpful to you for you to engage in the next moment's angry, right? So, okay, I got slapped. I'm going to be angry. Where am I feeling the anger, right? And then you notice once you try to identify it in your body, the sensations, it's not there anymore, and it's just like, okay, now what do I do with this fool? You know, you know what do I do here now? You know, and that's a way better scenario than he slapped me, I'm angry, and now something is going to happen. You know, it's just like you're not thinking rationally anymore. You are now caught up in the emotion, right? So it's just things will work out better for you. Things in most circumstances will work out better for you if you are in a positive state of mind and if you're dealing with your negative emotions.
Yeah.
And to go back to the thing that you were saying too, another habit that I make in my head and that I think could be a good practice is to not to continue to justify your negative emotions. You can excuse them, and I do think that a lot of them are excusable. Again, you get slapped, right? And you get angry. You can get wrapped up and feel bad for feeling angry, but it was a normal response, right? But what you don't want to do further is then say, okay, well, I have a right to be angry, so I'm going to continue to be angry. Like I had a right to be angry because I was slapped. Now I have to think about what I'm going to do. What are my actions going to be? And I have to make sure that they're rational. And anger does not help thinking about how to engage with that event rationally, essentially. So yeah, I mean, you really do want to. You don't want to continue to justify your negative emotions, I think is the idea. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get angry. You're gonna get depressed. You're gonna get sad. These things come, but you know, when it happens, you need to just deal with it right then and don't see it as especially when you start acting on it, right?
Would you say that your default, let's say something like action A happens to you, right? Imagine your thoughts sit at the center of a seesaw, okay? Like
Yeah.
You see like a seesaw on a playground and your thoughts are at the center of that.
Yeah.
And an action happens to you, your default to teeter-totter to the negative thought or to the positive thought. And for people whose default immediate reaction to any action is initially negative, you know, they want to know how to make that initial reaction more positive, because people who always default to the negative, it's really hard for them to imagine
How to get the
how to react in an immediate response in a more positive manner. They don't see how a lot of people don't see how that's even possible.
Yeah.
And that goes back to, I think, our discussion related to long-term solutions, where that's something that you're going to have to work at. But we're so used to immediate gratification that, you know, the desire to do the work to get that result is just not there. It takes so long.
Yeah.
But do you think your default reaction is still initially negative, or do you think it's become initially positive?
So
my curiosity is, are you still having to actively fight your way out of the negative thought, or now you're in a position where you start out with positive thinking?
Yeah, so this is how it works. So like we're programmed beings, right? We're learning beings, right? So we learn from past experiences.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens is, if there's a situation, so let's go back to that teeter-totter analogy, right? You have the negative and the positive.
Yep.
Right? What will happen to me is I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this.
If you need a different piece
Analogy.
of playground equipment, you can.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think. Well, let's stick with the. This is how it looks visually.
Yeah.
Okay. Something happens to me unexpected. Okay,
Yep.
that's usually where it starts, right?
Yeah.
The playground immediately tips negative, right?
The seesaw goes to the negative side.
Yes.
Okay.
But what I've done is I've trained myself to look for that bump. You know, when you hit the bottom of
Yep.
the ground, you have a
Yep.
bump. That jars me now. And I'm like, oh, I'm in the negative. And I immediately go to the center.
So you have a weight now that counterbalances
Yes.
that feeling, whereas before you didn't have that counterweight.
No.
And you think that counterweight derived from meditative practices
Yes.
over an extended period of time.
Yeah, I mean, so I have been meditating for a while, and I'm positive that helped too. But it's just something that I hadn't heard before that really set me over the edge, and it really is to just pay attention to the sensations negative emotions create in your body, right? So that is not something that anybody had ever said to me up until, well, nobody had said it to me. It's just something that finally occurred to me, I don't know how long ago, a month or 2 months ago, right? So I had been meditating for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have that last. So the fact that I had got good at focusing first, I'm sure probably helped. Now I'm just ready to focus on my negative emotions.
Yeah.
But that is a puzzle piece that you need, that you do want to focus on how your negative emotions affect bodily sensations.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I mean, it's only been 2 months, you know, so it was immediate for me.
Yeah, but so, I mean, to clarify, because I'm thinking of like what a person listening to this is hearing. They're thinking, oh, it only took him 2 months to get here. It didn't take you 2 months to get there.
Yeah, no.
You're seeing the results of 2 years of work
Yeah.
going back 2 months.
It took 2 to 3 years for that thought of focusing on my negative emotions to even occur to me,
Yeah.
right? But now I can.
And you were
say
doing
that-
work before that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I had been meditating for.
Now
quite a
people are
while.
going, fuck. So
This
it's going to take me half a decade to feel okay.
Well, I mean, 2
And
to
that's
3 years,
overbearing though, right? Like that's
Yeah.
overwhelming for someone to hear. Like it's going to take me that much work. Like
I don't-
what is simpler than that?
I don't feel like
You
it
know?
is. I don't feel like it. This is my personal. This is why I've been asking for feedback, and I'm going to continue to.
Yeah.
Right. I want to know what that half life is. I want to know
Yeah.
what the exponential growth is. I want to hear people's exponential growth because it took me that long.
But
I don't
it might
know
not take someone else that long.
if they have that puzzle piece. I want to
Yeah.
know how long does it take a new person who's just starting meditation, who doesn't have this puzzle piece of just focusing on the sensations negative emotions create, to improve their lives.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be dependent too, again, on their background, you know, like what kind of trauma have they experienced?
Yeah.
You know, what is their health status, mentally, physically?
And meditation
There's a lot
isn't
of
for everyone
factors.
either.
Yeah, right.
That's
Um,
another issue too. But
You know, how charged they are in terms of like their mind. Are they like wired for impulsive thought? Are they more generally reserved and content? You know, all those are going to be factors that would determine that. But I think it's still a good question. I think what you're asking is still a good question, and I would be curious about that too. And there's probably studies out there, again, as like people who are listening to us that are like experts in psychology. They probably have these they have these answers, and they should be the one doing podcasts. But again, you know, our role is trying to demonstrate how like an ordinary person works out like they're thinking. That's our role in this conversation that we're having. But
yeah, for the common person. And I also, like I said, there's stuff that we've said that I haven't heard anybody else say, which I think is important. But the other direction that I would go to, you were talking about. So, I mean, that would almost be a perfect example when you were talking about like somebody hears this, right? And they hear, 2 to 3 years, and they go, fuck. That was the perfect moment to exercise that meditation.
yeah,
The perfect moment. What do you feel? Well, I feel anxious and angry. Where do you feel it? I feel it in my stomach and my chest.
in that case, I'm gonna go meditate. We need to put this on pause real quick.
Yeah, and then what's the most productive thing I can do? Is it continue to listen to this podcast, or maybe now that you know that, maybe I can get through things. So let's go back to that teeter-totter analogy now, right?
Yeah.
So so something will send me into the negative, right? And it's usually a situation I'm not used to dealing with. So once it's a situation that I know how to deal with my negative emotions about, I stop going. I probably won't even hit the ground sometimes, you know, and then I stop even hitting the ground. I notice it before I even hit the ground.
Yeah.
And something bumps me. And so the more
So as you're going down into a negative thought on a, like, you know, using the teeter-totter analogy, you're rolling back, your thought is rolling back towards the middle or towards the positive side before you're, you know, getting it, you know, say rock bottom or to like the depth of a negative thought.
based on the circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, this is where I was trying to come up with a different, if it's windy and I'm not used to dealing with wind on a teeter-totter, that's going to bump me. But if I know, okay, just pay attention to the negative, then the next time the wind comes, I don't hit the ground. And the next time I hit it less, and then I hit it less, to the point where that situation doesn't bother me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the practice. You want to get used to scenarios that would usually upset you. You want to practice being calm in those scenarios so that when you encounter them again, your brain's already used to it. And this is the learning process. This is all, what studies talk about and all that jazz or whatever. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So I am sure if I was in a war-torn area, I'm going to have a lot of experience to catch up on.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to be like, fine.
Also, what are you doing on a seesaw in a war zone?
No, right. Well, I think it's Germany maybe, or what's the ring around the rosy?
The ring around the rosy, I think, is about the plague.
Cholera or something.
I think ring around the rosy was about the plague. Pocket full of posies, so you don't smell all your
That has to be some of the darkest
friends.
stuff ever, like the child analogies with the just extreme, like teeter-totter in a war zone, right? Like, that's pretty dark shit right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, so that is, that's it. And, the best that I can do. And so, let me take this further then. Let's just go ahead and be completely open here. So I was depressed the other night, right? And I was really depressed because, like, I felt like I wasn't really helping people. I was depressed because I was in this constant state of contentment and happiness, and it didn't seem to be affecting people around me as much as I would have liked it to. And that got to me, right?
You were feeling depressed, and you were frustrated that other people weren't recognizing that or responding to it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, weren't recognizing it.
Sorry about that.
And in the ways that I would have wanted to too. Well, it's everybody, you know. So, but then again, I focused on that emotion, and that thought quickly turned into like, you're lucky, man. Like, if somebody else can't do it, that's not something to be upset about. That's something to feel like bad for them about. Like you were given a gift, essentially, as much as, whatever you can read into that, like if this is really a thing, then you were given a gift and you shouldn't be wrapped up in all this other stuff, like people have to deal with their own things. And then I was content and happy after that. Yeah. But I really had to adjust my mental. And so I was talking to my girlfriend about these things, and there's like two things. There's an emotion where you're feeling it because something unexpected happened, and there's really not much you can do about the emotion. Somebody cuts you off, right? You can focus on your emotions.
You mean like in speech or in traffic?
In traffic.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have emotions that go with that, right? And you focus on those emotions, and it goes away, and you'll find you don't even really need to think. The event was over. It's over, right? But what I actually found that night with the depression, the reason it even took 10 minutes instead of just 1 second, which is a minute to a second is usually where I'm at on my negative whatever, was because something had to change. And so my body it kept bringing that emotion up. It wouldn't, like, I would feel it and it would go away, and then it would come back, and then I would feel it and it would go away and it would come back. And it took me a second.
And you had to address it every time?
Yes. And I had to keep addressing it until I figured out, like, something has to change. And what changed was, like, you need to spend more time enjoying this moment that you're in rather than feeling negative about all these other things. So, I decided I made the meditation video. I'm doing these podcasts. That's all I can do, and I have to accept that. I have to accept that how people take this is how they take it, right? And once I realized that, because the issue was that I was working way too hard to make people listen to this stuff. I was working way too hard, right? Rather than putting it out there and my job being done, which is really what it is. Like, I've told people what I think works. That's all I can do.
If it works, take it. If it doesn't, don't worry about it.
Yep. What else could I possibly do, right? And that moment, everything was gone.
Yeah, you can at least take solace in the fact that you're trying to do good. I mean, that's better than doing nothing. I mean, we always talk about how we would shape society. I mean, you want people who at least try to do good. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of people I want to be around, as opposed to people who are apathetic or people who hold their secrets. You know, so they figure out what works, right? And they like hoard it because they feel like I figured it out. Like, and it was so hard for me to figure it out that like
I'm not just
everyone else needs to figure it out themselves, right? Because they had to figure it out themselves. Yeah. And so you could take that approach because you know, according to you, you found something that works. Yeah. And like you continue to test that in your own life and it works for you. You could have just told nobody. Yeah. And just been like, you know, I got this thing. But you put it out there. And again, you know, so if it works for people, fantastic, you know, because now they can take it and use it. And then maybe, you know, you're talking about exponential results, you know, maybe they take it and like it keeps passing on. And then that knowledge is out there.
And that should affect me too, you know, it's just like if people around me are doing better, that's going to make me do better. So that's really.
Yeah. And it works in conjunction. So, you know, if you're talking about it and someone else that figures out, you know, someone else that's doing a podcast or a YouTube series is doing something similar, I mean, it creates like a collective consciousness of like, we're all doing this thing. Yeah. And it seems to work. So let's get more people involved.
That's something we could talk about in the future too, that I'm also interested in, because I also went from a place where I felt like people are asleep and dead and like we're
metaphorically.
Yeah. Yeah. And humanity's going down a bad path. Yeah. To now feeling the opposite, you know, to now feeling like I think we're waking up, you know, and I even put that on my Facebook at one point and I got a lot of positive responses, you know, more than I usually get. So that I think people really are. I think we are all waking up. I don't think this is a me thing or this is an us thing. I think we are all learning and realizing. And then the question is why? Or like, what's that going to? Or, you know, what is that? It's very interesting, right? And like intriguing. But I'm also glad that like I'm not in it alone. That's also a great feeling to also know that like I'm not the only one waking up. I'm not the, you know, like this is a humanity thing, and like where is humanity going to go? And it's amazing and it's exhilarating. So
what makes you feel like you're waking, like when you say you're waking up, and just to address the audience real quick, I'm not talking about wokeness here. So, although you might say that I am, but when you say you feel like you're waking up, what is that? What are you waking up to? What are you?
I think we're waking up. So the post that I made was that people are figuring out that pride and apathy don't get us very far. So that's what I think we're waking up to. I think we're becoming more humble, and I think we're becoming more engaged. So those two things. Still not the level that I would like, but again, that's not my decision.
And what was it that so when you wake up, something is activated in you, or you know, like if you're like metaphorically, if you're sleeping, maybe someone nudges you awake and it causes you to rise. What things touched a nerve that make you feel like you're more aware? You have this awareness that you didn't possess before. Was there something that you heard, experience that you had, a piece of information that you were given?
No, I don't know. I have no clue. Like, I don't know why it's happening.
Find a cave with a hidden chest in it. Are you hiding that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like for me, so the way that I quote unquote woke up was that like I went through a lot of suffering when I was younger, and I just was constantly in this mental state of like, I have to find a way out of this. And I do think, here's another opinion or whatever, but I see people who are in similar or the same struggles as I was, and they're not like, they're taking the easy way out and they're going for that instant gratification. And for whatever reason, that wasn't good enough for me. I had to get to the base of all my emotions. I wasn't going to accept well, I understand myself and my emotions, 10%, that's good enough. Now I'll just live my life. I was really like, no, I got to get to the bottom, the absolute bottom of this. So it was just for me a journey and a seeking. And I think it's probably that way with a lot of other people. There's just something in them that tells them to. So I do think that there are people who are still asleep. That's, but I think that there are just more awake people than I thought there were. I think that was really the thing that was surprising.
Well, what tells you that, so it's hard to answer what makes you feel like you're waking up, but what do you recognize in someone else that tells you that they're experiencing some kind of awakening,
what they
some
talk
type
about.
of awareness?
Yeah, what they talk about and what they ruminate on. I see people who weren't posting about climate change and things like that are now doing those things. They're becoming more and more aware that these are things that they have to talk about. Some people have been doing it for longer than I have, so those people are probably, they were awake longer than I've been. But I've seen people who didn't seem to care at all about those things that are now engaging in those things. So, and that's what was really doing it, is when I saw like, oh, okay, I'm not one of 3 people on my Facebook page talking about this thing anymore. So that's what I would say. And the fact that like there seems to be, we've been becoming more compassionate as a society and as a world for a while now. We had the 70s open love revolution, right? That seemed to like peter out and die almost, right? But I think that was just a wave. I think these things are working in waves, and we're waiting on more and more waves. I do think we're becoming more empathetic and more open, and there's just an oscillation that occurs between the good and bad, and so you can really focus on the negative on a bad day rather than focusing that on a week before there was something really inspiring. Like I was just talking to somebody, the person I was talking to you about earlier, who was talking about how she has a kid, and she is either a teacher or she's working, or she's just helping her kid with an assignment. I'm not sure which one, but how like they're really harping on critical thinking, and like then she was helping, and she was engaging with the student. And I'm like, I'm hearing more and more of that, like more and more. In the education system, I'm hearing about critical thinking becoming like central. In my classes at school, with my class, I've had students say that like they're becoming game based. They're doing game based learning and heavy critical thinking. So I'm more likely to get a student now who actually knows some of the fallacies, and it wasn't like that just 2 years ago.
That's exciting to me from like the stamp societally that, the younger generations will learn how to think critically. But as a potential parent in the future, I'm sad that I won't be able to just say, I told you so, do this. Because I was basically a little cave person. And so when my parents were like, just do it because I said it, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm going to be able to get away with that as a parent. Because my kids are going to be like, Dad, that was a logical fallacy. Yeah. Like, what? What did you say to me?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, I bring that up specifically in class too. That's when we're talking about appeal to authority, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm just like, okay, so your parent tells you to clean your room, you ask why, and they say, and like just in unison, it's always because I told you so, right? And we talk about that, and it's just like, okay, now, and I make clear, like, I'm not a parent, so I understand that there are moments where like they do need to listen to you. You know what I mean? Because like, okay, like don't drink that bleach, or I don't know, there's something, like where you really do have, it's a hasty thing that needs to happen. You don't have time to explain. But what I would ask parents to do is to focus on your negative emotions and ask, is this a learning experience for them where I really can, clean your room? Well, why should I clean my room? And actually think about that. Like, well, why should they clean the room? Well, if something bad happens, I don't want them tripping over their toys in the middle of the night if we're trying to get out of the house. Or I can explain to them the idea of presentability and the fact that we have people over. Hey, the reason I want you to clean your room is because I know you want friends over, and I want your friends to think that this is a clean place where they can come and have fun, right? Like all that is like, what about that is so difficult a child can't understand? Like they're really just gonna be like, nah. And then,
Now there's going to be another parent out there that just stole all your ideas, and their kid's going to run through why those don't matter, and they're going to be stuck at the end because they're like, he didn't give me a third option as to why.
You gave me 2. Yeah. And then they're just be like, because I told you to, damn it.
Yeah, they're going to go right back. You just delegitimized the entire generation of parents. Way to go.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I don't have kids, so I can't begin to understand the complexities of parenthood, and I don't claim to. This is really a general statement that includes parents. It's the same thing with like spanking or whatever. Like when we talk about spanking, currently I don't plan on spanking.
Talking about those things girls wear.
Spanks?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what they're called? Spanking, and that's not the yoga pants, right? Those are different. I don't know what Spanks are, man.
Just continue.
Okay. Like I'm not sure if I want to spank my kid in the future, at this point I'm planning not to, right?
Yeah.
But I can't ever say there's not a reason to spank your kid. That would be an absolute that I would not feel comfortable saying. I haven't been in every scenario with a kid, right? But I do notice that, and this is an observation, parents who spank their kids, I often ask them like, okay, when you did it, I'm just curious, did you like settle with your emotions first, think about what the logical solution was, and do that? See, you're laughing.
Were you calm before you beat the out of your kid?
That's what I'm saying, right? So it's just like, so don't tell me you're doing it for this rational.
Perfectly content.
Yeah. Like, why not just say you were angry and you did it, right? Rather than, because when I talk to parents, they try to put this rationale behind it, and it's just like, okay, now I'm going to ask you, were you angry when you did it, or were you in this rational mind? Okay, so don't play the rational bit then.
I feel like it'd be more traumatic as a kid if like your parent calmly like walked in and spanked the crap out of you, as opposed to them like
it's
being
intimidating
in a moment of rage.
Just like a robot just comes in and spanks you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your sentence has been delivered.
Well,
I've thought about this, and I'm going to spank you.
I've deliberated over this. Yeah. And it's just like, it's not helping that person at all. They're like, oh, that helps me a lot, knowing you deliberated about this.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Mom.
But let's see. I just want to make sure this didn't go off. What's going on here? Okay, yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Sorry, I took us down a path.
Oh no, you're fine. I'm trying to think of, because I was talking about. No. I do know parents who have done that though. Right? I know parents. Okay, no. So I do know parents who claim to do that.
They calm down.
Yes.
And then they go deliver a whooping.
Yes. And then they calm down. Now they could just be bullshitting, right? So that's one option, right? But another one is that, I don't want to assume. I don't know, so maybe there was a scenario where they were really like, this warrants, they need a spanking, I don't know. I can't think of a scenario, right? Like your kid hits another kid. Okay. But then you're going to hit them to show them that you shouldn't hit. So that, it's hard for me to think of one, apart from like, I've heard this one, and it's just like, well, yeah, that's a scenario, but you're like, your kid's about to stick his finger in a light socket, just like, yes, I'm going to smack my kid's hand, but that's different. That's not the, come on. Like, it's just weird that I get these off arguments, right? That doesn't, like, that's not spanking. Come on. That's not spanking, so it's very strange. It seems like, again, this loops back to what we were talking about earlier, where people justify those negative emotions, right? So no, I have to justify that anger, right? It's just like, no, initially you were right. Whatever they made you angry about, you were probably, it made perfect sense to be angry about it. But the things that come after are on you.
Yeah.
Period. You like, and I said this and I'll say it to the day that I die, and it's true for me too. Okay. My negative emotions are on me. I have to deal with them. And this is something that psychologists have said that I used to disagree with. I think you can think about it critically. It doesn't matter. But their point was that like things don't make you feel a way. You feel that way. Like that things don't make you feel that way. You just do feel that way. And you have to deal with that, which is really hard to accept.
Again, I don't know if that's actually true.
Right.
But it's just more useful to handle it that way.
Yes.
As if it were true.
And this goes into the conversation we were having last week about like reality.
Yeah.
You remember that
perception.
Whole thing? Yeah. So which maybe we'll talk about, in a future episode. But the idea is, and maybe we can kind of leave the piece here or whatever.
That's fine.
The unless you have,
No,
I'm down to talk for however long. But the idea is that, and I'm not saying truth doesn't matter. So please do not read that into what I'm saying. What I'm saying is sometimes truth doesn't matter as much as what you believe about the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that truth doesn't matter, but sometimes what you'll find in turn, and I can explain why this is in a future episode because it has to do with like evolution and the way things evolved. It doesn't matter always so much what's true as what you do or what you believe past that. So,
and you're not talking, just because we have to kind of say this because of the time period that we live in. You're not talking about like distorting facts.
No.
And just you're not pulling a Rudy Giuliani here where like the truth is not truth, right?
Right.
You're talking about something different.
Right, exactly. So truth does matter.
We're not post-truthers.
Right. We're not postmodernists to just an extreme extent like some postmodernists, but it's just so truth matters. You'll find that in certain moments it matters less than what you believe. That's it. And just certain moments, So I have moments where I'll accept something. It'll make me feel better so that I can deal with my emotions and do what I need to do. And then I'll find at the end of that course of action, I don't even believe that.
It's like a mythological story. So it's like there's things that we tell in a story. And we might know that myth didn't actually like happen in the real world, but our response to the myth shapes how we behave and the way that we conduct ourselves because we see value in that story and we try to emulate or avoid certain behaviors that we've learned in that story.
Yes. Perfect example.
Yeah.
Perfect example. Yeah. So, and we've had this progression where it seems like we're learning more about what's true in the world, right? Mm-hmm. But before we got there, we had to just be a little bit more true than what came before.
Yep.
Right. And that little bit of truth got us farther with all the things that may have been untrue, but they did propel us into the next moment. Right. It's just like my life is misery. I'm sick every day. I'm probably going to die in 10 years. How do I deal with this? Well, there has to be a purpose. There has to be a purpose. There has to be a higher purpose. Something has to be watching over me. I'm going to be okay. Now, do you have any factual information to prove that? Probably not, right? Might it be beneficial to believe that in certain circumstances?
Right.
And might it get you through that circumstance? It might, absolutely. So in evolutionarily speaking, sometimes it doesn't matter so much what's true as what you believe.
Right.
So just something to think about anyway. And then, so the other thing that I just wanted to bring up was, the stuff we're going to do with, I think, I don't know if we want to hold ourselves to anything. So, but we're going to have, potentially Chris back on the podcast. And then, we did want to talk to a professor is he from Southern California?
I don't remember.
I can't remember either at this point, but we do want to reach out with him. We kind of got disconnected for a second because we're both busy people. He's a busy person too, so when we're interacting with him, he's like flying places and stuff. So, and then so we have plans. We have plans to talk to people and keep this thing going. So, look out for all of that and whatnot.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, so this was kind of just like a check-in riff session for us. So hopefully you got something out of it. I feel like it went okay for us from my perspective.
Yeah. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Thanks for taking a listen. And you listen to Currency, a Discourse podcast. We'll see you later. Take care.
Have a nice night.